Well, I just found out my mom writes pornographic letters to prisoners for profit. Anyone else found out anything about their parents they'd rather not know? My mom once told me over lunch when I was 26. Your brother was always my favorite. Your sister was always your dad's favorite. I always felt bad for you because you were no one's favorite. I mean, I always knew. But it was weird to get external confirmation like that. Remind them of that when they are old and need your help with something. My mom and dad were introduced to each other by their drug dealer. When my dad asked him what's she like, the dealer told him she buys weed by the pound and likes to frick. He told me this while crying a few days after she died. I was 12. I can't tell if that's a tender bonding moment where dad just needed to talk to you like a friend or a sudden collapse of your childhood. I found out my mother had an abortion before me. Then she got pregnant with me, but didn't abort just so she could prove to my father that she wasn't cheating on him. First words out of her mouth to my father after it was determined my blood type is the same as my father's. What now, mother? I was born with the purpose of winning an argument. Edit. Just some background on how I came to find out. I'm the youngest of 4 children and there's a big age gap between myself and my sibling closest in age. Even more so with my oldest sibling. My mother and I were riding in the car one day when I was 11 or 12. I got curious and asked my mom why I didn't have a brother or sister closer in age. My mother, world renowned for her tact, proceeds to tell me an impassioned story of what I described above in graphic detail. Based on the upvotes, it's good to know that Reddit enjoys schadenfreude as much as I do. I was my parents' celebration of my dad's recent vasectomy. 1 in about 10,000 men are born with 3 vas deferens, not just the 2. Mum told the doc that did my dad's vas and he told them well crap, I missed one. Looks like this one is on me. I was my parents' bargain child. I feel your pain. I'm pretty sure my dad poses as a female online in order to chat up other females, and that my mum knows. The latter I know because they had a mini, hushed argument while I was in room, thinking I was listening to music through headphones. Dude, the things you hear when you have headphones in but no music on is just insane. I was at my buddy's house. I've known the guy for a few months and his mom asks us to go and get a box of pop in the pantry in the basement. Followed my friend in case of assistance. Friend sees boxes he didn't recognize. Opens to find 5-7 boxes of dildos. Any kind of sexual thing you can imagine. We both are confused and went back upstairs. He waited until I left to ask, but he told in class the next day that his parents runs a sex shop online and are the largest one in Canada. Yes, his parents own the love shop online. We crack jokes about it all the time when I'm over now. Tell your friend's parents to update their websites : so hard to navigate. I found out that my mom is into dominance and bondage, and when she was in college her roommate, and still best friend and my favorite aunt, would strip her down and paddle her when she got a bad grade. Apparently they also had sex a lot. They met my dad when they were cruising bars looking for a man to bring for a threesome. Hot. I caught my mother with her own older brother. I have never shared this with anyone in my life. This post stirred up all those memories that haunted me for 3 years when I was a teen. Till the time I moved away to college. I hate Reddit sometimes. At least you didn't get thrown out a window. I was conceived after a Christmas party. Both my parents were hammered. Got home, went wild piggy on each other. My dad passes out and my mom goes to put the spermicide in afterward just in case. She passes out. In the morning she wakes up and realizes she missed and put the spermicide in her butt. Yes, true story. Why do you know this? Why? I found out my parents used to be in the moonshine business in West Virginia. Later I found out that they were also growing mushrooms. That's actually pretty cool. That my mom is a screamer. Thanks internet for keeping me awake long enough to discover that. She makes $750 a month. From who? I don't understand the business model here. 1. Write pornographic letters to prisoners. 2. 3. Profit. I work in prisons and trust me, they got money. They say it's easier to get drugs on the inside than the out. They say that it costs over £100 for a mobile phone etc etc. There is a lot of trading in prisons. If only they would turn their innovative ideas for smuggling to something more legal. My dad works as a gynecologist at a large hospital. He deals with a lot of pussies. The strange part is I know a lot of friends who go to him. I was told when I was 9 that the man who raised me wasn't my real dad. My real dad was my stepdad's co-worker. Both cops. I was told that my mom found out she was pregnant when she puked all over the bar. She knew it because she had never puked from being drunk before. I was told when I was 17 that I had 2 sisters and a brother on my dad's side. I found said siblings when I was 19. My dad had kept my existence and that of my older sister, as bastards, a secret from his wife, son and daughter their entire lives. I met dad when I was 21. He ended up sleeping on the couch for a while as both my older sister and I were conceived while he was married to his current wife. When I was 29 I learned my mom was a former stripper and possible prostitute while working at the donut bank around the time I was conceived. She ran away from home at 14, the first time, and went to work as a bartender in New Orleans. When I was 31 I learned I was conceived on the chess table that used to be in my grandparents' house and now sits in my living room. Your dad sounds like a real piece of crap. You know how people claim that Western nations are stealing the oil in poor African nations? Well, my dad is one of the guys stealing the oil. Over the years he has set up drilling deals with pretty much every despot dictatorship with oil in the world. Still I love him because he is my dad, but it's weird knowing so many people demonize him. Growing up I always thought my dad was like James Bond because he got to go to all these exotic places only to grow up and realize he is more like a James Bond villain than anything. After reading this thread I found out my family is rather normal, which I'd rather not know because now I have no reason to complain about them. No, your family isn't normal, you just don't know it yet. My mom recently told me she never wanted kids, and finally said what the heck, and succumbed to my dad's pleading once they bought the right house. Joke's on her though, she turned out to be a freaking fantastic mother. That showed her. Okay, so I've been crossdressing for my whole life. I never really told anybody and I definitely never got caught doing it. It's a private thing and I enjoy it and it makes me feel good, so frick the haters. Anyway, so about 2 years ago I'm on my parents' computer looking for some game or file I downloaded years back, and I accidentally stumble upon my dad's huge collection of crossdresser and trans p. I mean like, huge collection. Since then I've felt really strange about the whole thing. It's always nice when a father and son share a hobby they can really bond over. My mom likes to get drunk and tell me all her sexcapade stories. Among them, I've heard details of all the BJs she's given my stepdad and her throwing her bra at Bret Michaels. I'm sorry man. Depending on the contract your mother signed with the prison P letter distributor, if there is one, you'll be remiss in your duties as a son. I assume you're male. If you didn't, 1. Help your mother collect the letters into an ebook, or ebooks, if there are a lot. 2. Have her choose a pen name and a title for the book, or titles for the books. 3. Hire a good flat fee copy editor, or do it yourself, understanding that the letters are works of fiction. 4. Design an eye-catching cover or covers, or hire the work out for a flat fee. 5. Help her format the works for ebooks. 6. Help her upload the works to the various distribution sites. Go with Amazon, Pubbit, B&N, and Smashwords for the rest. 7. Price the works at $2.99 or above. 8. Profit. Go be a good son. I hope she kept copies, and or can bang out. A few more letters. Cheers. My mom told me she had a lesbian affair with one of her cousins. She told me this in order to prevent me from being a lesbian. She failed. Putting the whole cousin thing aside, this seems similar to if my kid wanted fast food, and I told him a story about the time that I got a big, juicy double cheeseburger with fries and a shake in order to convince him to eat Brussels sprouts instead. When I was about 11 me and my family were on a road trip. After we've stopped for dinner one night we were sitting down by the table in our caravan. The table in this caravan could be transformed into a sleeping area. So as we're sitting there eating, my mom and dad are talking and reminiscing about past road trip they've done in this old caravan that had served my family for many decades. Just as I'm about to take a big bite my dad says I think it was right here, on the side of the caravan, that Norberton was conceived. I would like to sincerely thank my dad for waiting with that comment until I had finished half the meal, at least. Found some fuzzy handcuffs and used bottles of lube in a drawer while looking for something. While I was shuffling through the drawer, I accidentally picked up the bottle of lube. It had residue on it. It bears mentioning that bottles of lube, after their first use, always have residue on it. It also bears mentioning that that residue probably had some dong sweat on it. Have a nice day. My mom used to sell sex toys at sex toy parties. When I was really little, I would go into her bin of toys and play with them. Her dildos would be the monsters that would kidnap and hold my Barbies hostage and tie them up in anal beads. This will probably get buried since I'm late to the party, but whatevs. My brother and his best friend were at our house. They were both 15. I was 13. My dad was at work, and my mom went to the store, so they decide that they are going to raid my parents' bedroom, looking for stuff that they had confiscated or anything else that was interesting. Well, they found my parents' little red toolbox. We bust off the back hinge of the box, and lo and behold, a trove of sex things. The list of tidbits, Kama Sutra, booby tassels. First I had seen of these. I still get terrible images in my head. Lesbian pee. My mom is anti-gay marriage, but apparently cool with chicks scissoring. A vibrator, and a felt bag that had a rather large white dildo. Well, my brother's friend. He does what anyone would do in the situation. He slaps me across the face with the dildo. Full on. Kerplo. I am furious. With a nice big red mark across my face, I turn to him screaming, "You slapped me with my own mother's freaking dildo. What the frick?" He calmly responds, "Or your dad's." TLDR. Dad and mom have treasure of sexy time things. Get beaten in face with someone's dildo. Not sure whose. He calmly responds, "Or your dad's." This had me laughing so hard. I once found my stepdad pee stash when I was about 14. Was fapping to one when I noticed that the guy looked kinda like my stepdad, though I was sure it couldn't be. After all, he had a curly fro and select mustache. Doesn't that sound like every pee star from the time? So I continued fapping. Man, that guy looked like my stepdad. Fapping. Now, the entire time I'm watching and fapping, the camera is mostly on the penetration shot. It wasn't until the money shot when I saw my mom take a nice load to the face that I realized, yeah, that was my stepdad. This sounds like a story straight from the autobiography of Bad Luck Brian. My mother drew Klingon pee when I was little. I hear it's really good too. I need to go wash my eyes out with bleach. Be back. My wife still reminds me that the first time she met my parents, she saw my mom getting a doggy in the hot tub. No time can heal that wound. I think that the most embarrassing part of this story is that the author of 50 Shades of Grey is a better writer than your mother. One day my mom walks into my room holding a black velvet bag. I'm about 24 at the time, so I think maybe she brought home some fancy liquor or something. She asks me, "Hey, would you use this at all?" She then proceeds to pull this curved purple vibrator from the black bag. I have no idea what to say. She very bluntly says it didn't work. It's supposed to stimulate my G-spot, but it just made me numb, and the store says they won't exchange it or give a refund. I couldn't emote properly at this moment and ended up making some sort of nervous laughing sign noise and declined the offer with a simple number. My dad gave my mom herpes before they were married. It's just a weird thing to think about your parents having venereal diseases, and none of my siblings know. Even though my parents are separated and seemingly hate each other, my dad is still clearly in love with my mom. And no matter how much my dad pushes her away, my mom is subconsciously open to the idea of getting him back. My dad, however, has a pride issue, and is incapable of admitting his love for my mom, incapable of acting on it, or sacrificing for it. I regret learning this, and I don't. The reason I regret learning this is because now I look at the two of them differently, and I hate the fact that I see my dad for who he is, a guy who is completely miserable without my mom. He's a functioning addict, weed and alcohol, and it's clear as day that his only cure is getting my mom back. At the same time, I don't regret learning this, because it's what got me back together with my girlfriend. I realize that I too have an ego pride issue, and that I was still in love with my girlfriend, but incapable of admitting it, acting on it, or sacrificing for it. Once I realized how crazy I was being, it all hit me. I needed Lindsay back, and now all is right in the world. My parents have always been separated while I was growing up, and the idea of them being together sounds grotesque to me, but they've both been single for the longest time, and really they only need to put their pride aside and be happy together. True story, you guys might like this one. We have an uncle who's a cross-dresser. He never got any surgery or nothing, just lives his life as a woman. Uncle Darren. Well, we've grown up to call him Aunt Darla. He makes such a convincing woman, used to babysit us and hang around. Great person, and I think that 90% of the people he meets assume he's a woman off the bat. I actually only figured out he was a dude around the time of my bar mitzvah. They wouldn't let him sit with the women. He's 50 now, still will only dress and act like a woman. Name was legally changed to Darla too. Never really dug into it to find out what the story was. Aunt Darla was Aunt Darla. She was a girl born in a man's body, and we just all accepted that. A few years back, one of Darla's best friend from high school gets a message through Facebook from a woman who's been looking for Darren. She said it's important and needs a phone number to reach him, but said friend refuses, approaching my father instead via Facebook. Father gets a hold of the woman and yup, it's time for Aunt Darla to meet the daughter she didn't know she had. Blame drunk sex. Easy to say, hilarity ensues. My mom spit out 2, laughed for an hour straight. But we don't tell Darla right away. I go with my father to meet the woman and her daughter, 25-yo, who pretty much looks exactly like Darla. We explain things to the woman first, and easy to say she didn't take it really well, and the whole cattiness of her attitude made it even worse. Daughter didn't seem to care. Finally meeting her daughter and dad, mom goes insanely well. 2 peas in a pot, crying and a lot of kisses. A few weeks later she moves in with Darla. I'm so happy for them. Uncle is the best mom in the world, and we knew he'd be. Daughter got a job in the family business, and to be honest, best accountant in the universe. Never misses a beat. It's a wonder we've made it so far without her. I'm reading this from the other side of the coin and laughing. I'm a guy in my mid-40s, with a young son. On the one hand, I don't feel much older than I did in my 20s, when we started dating. Sex is still fun, pee is still fun, and so forth. On the other hand, in another 8 or 10 years my son and his friends are probably going to stumble upon some of the sexy time stuff that we have around the house and go, but my parents, ick, puts a bit of perspective on finding my own parents' stuff when I was that age. My dad had a storage garage with our whole lives in it, before it got sold to auctioneers. Cause he's a d-bag. He went with my brother to check it out. At one point my brother opened a box, and my dad must have noticed and ran over. In a panic he said, "I am so sorry, I never wanted you to find." Then he realized my brother had found something different, and continued with, "Oh, never mind. It'll be our secret." What the frick did he think my brother found? When it started to get worse and worse between my parents, each side was telling me some dirty secrets against other. That's how I know that my mom lost her front tooth after being too drunk and falling on ground. That my dad was selling drugs. At that particular moment he was addicted to amphetamine, and worked as a driver for H. He also was stealing from shops and mugging. It didn't help me to gain respect for them and grow up as happy person. I started writing mine and just got sad. My family looks perfect from the outside, but it's really not, and my mom has had a really rough life. I'm going to go over there and hug her before work. Thanks Reddit. Not being sarcastic. My dad didn't want any more kids because of me. Apparently I was such a terror that my dad didn't want any more children. But, joke's on him. My little sister is the favorite. So yeah, I guess. One day, my kids will probably find out that their daddy is a mod on our Legal Teens and a couple of other subs that shall remain unmentioned. Recently found out my parents had been cheating on each other for the last few years of their marriage. I look a whole lot more like the neighbor than my dad. I found out fairly recently that my dad cannot read. Sounds tame enough, but we had a bunch of books on a bookcase near the TV for a good 7 years of my life. I always remembered my dad going across, picking one up, dusting it off and sitting down and reading it just before we went to bed. During a conversation the other week, my dad revealed that he couldn't read very well. and I asked about the books. Well, it turns out those books were actually my dad's genius way of hiding his pee. He had cut out the pages of the book, hidden VHS tapes in one side, and pee mags in the other. TLDR. My dad's a perv too, dude. Assuming it's 4 letters a month, she's writing to 37.5 men. Let's say 37, shall we? 37 men are beating off to you mama regularly. Pictures of her or just pictures? Because in the first case yes, I would rather not know, but in the second case that is pretty freaking awesome. You write a dirty letter and you steal some pics off the net and you make $750 a month. Crap, I'm gonna start doing that, and I am a guy. My brother told me, after my dad died, that he used to come into town and invite my brother out with him, and tell him not to tell me he was in town because I am fat and it embarrasses him to be seen with me. My mom was on the phone and I overheard her say my brother before me was crying and my dad did not tolerate crying in the house, so he made my mother put him out in the driving rain in his crib until the crying stopped. He got sick and my dad kept refusing to take him to the doctor. Suddenly he started coughing really bad and mom called the cab to take him to the hospital, but he died before the cab arrived. I was not surprised. This was just typical of the sadistic bastard. My dad got away with it. I don't want to gouge my eyes out. What I do want to gouge out is the heartache and the never good enough feeling I live with every day. My dad was obsessed with my mom. They were high school sweethearts, but my mom moved away before graduation. My dad kept all the love letters they wrote to each other, every picture they'd ever taken together, as well as rings and bracelets that she'd left behind. He bought her brand of perfume so that he could make his room smell like her. He insisted that all the women that he dated afterwards do their hair like my mom's. When my mom moved back into town years later, she was married and had a son. My dad undermined the relationship and married my mom. My half brother is awesome, but he and my dad have never gotten along, since he blames my dad for breaking his parents up. My dad still has that box with all of her stuff from high school. I've never understood how my mom was so calm about an old boyfriend pretty much keeping a shrine to her for 10 years, almost 30 now, after they'd split up. TLDR. My dad was more obsessed with my mom than Gollum was with the ring. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.